Hi everyone. Just a few words before I'm showing you the actual video. Last week on Thursday in Patrick's live chat, we were speaking about a video Patrick made. The video that I'm going to play after this is basically a review of that video. Now, since I made this review, Patrick has seen the video. He has responded to it, and he has agreed that I can put it online, which I'm going to do with this video. And I hope you find this interesting. For me, this was also the opportunity to test the setup for my upcoming series where I'm going to talk about editing drone video. I do not have an exact release date when I'm going to start with releasing that. The first episode, or the 0 episode, finished today, but I think I might wait till after Easter till I launch it. Anyways, the link to Patrick's video, which has the sound reworked, is down below. So is the links that I mentioned in that video. I hope you can actually make use of this video, or this is interesting to you. Have fun watching it, and see you soon. Hi Patrick, you asked us yesterday in your chat to look closely at your video and give you a few pointers or hints what we think could be improved, and we did that in the chat, but I felt after the chat that we didn't do it about a few things well enough, and that I wasn't able to explain all things that I wanted to say well during the chat. So after the chat, I downloaded your video from YouTube, which in hindsight seemed a good idea, because apparently you've taken it down, or at least made it non-public anymore. But well, I got a copy, and I was like, oh, I'm going to do this video where I'm going a bit through it and point out a few things anyways. I'm not going to put this video public unless you say I can, which I hope you do, but that's up to you. It's your video that we're talking about. I have turned off all sound. We spoke enough about the sound yesterday in the chat. I could show you a few things how to work with the sound in Adobe Premiere, but since you're working with Final Cut, that wouldn't really help you. I'm sure the University of YouTube, as you call it, will have tutorials on how to do the sound, how you can have some of the sound dodge the others, and so on as well. So I'm going to keep this completely out of the screen. I'm going to play a video on my screen here. I'm going to step into a few of the notes that I made about places in the video where I want to actually talk about something that's specific there. And I hope you find this commentary useful, and this is helping you to improve. I always think it's the worst when people just comment, "Oh, what a great video," but don't really give you any pointers on what can be done better. So your video is great, and now here come the things that I think we didn't speak enough about that need maybe a bit of improvement. But that's my opinion. I'm not a professional in this, but I think I've done enough work with video, and I've learned enough in the University of YouTube to actually make a bit of a commentary here. All right, let's actually start right with the video. Now I'm going to talk about the frame rate, about the FPS in a few minutes, or in a minute, or whatever. And this effect will be amplified by me recording this from my screen. So it is not as bad as it looks in this video, but you might want to take your video and have a closer look at those places again to actually see what I'm talking about. Now, the first thing, and that's the only place where I found something like that, and it's very, very subtle, is you actually do this thing where you're not flying in a straight line, and it looks a bit strange. I'm going to play the video now, and this happens at second 6, frame 14 on. That's where we are right now. So you're going slightly to the left here up until frame, where is it? Frame 12 of second 13. We're now past that. I'm going back. So you can actually try to see what I mean by following. Where are we? 10, 9, 8. There we go. 6:14. Actually, I'm going back a bit more. So that's even slower than earlier when I wasn't recording. If you look at the L, which is my mouse cursor should be visible on this video, I hope. At the second L of the column, you have a bit wider spot on the tree and the upper part of the L. If I go back a few frames, you can see that this is moving very parallel to the L. That's while you are still doing the upwards movement. But from frame 14 of the 6th second on, which is this frame, the L actually moves closer to that point, as you can see here, where it's almost touching it. And then if I go further, it right before the next part comes there, it almost is above the white spot. And that's because you are moving to the left here. You can see it here with the T as well. That white spot, if you look at it, it's a bit to the left of the end of the T. And now if I go forward, it actually goes to the right of the T. So you have this movement which goes to the left in there, up till, well, it goes a few seconds, and then you do go in a straight line again, and it's really very subtle. It's not like this jumps into your face, but I noticed it when you were playing the video yesterday, and I wasn't sure if I had noticed something or if this was my imagination. So I spent a bit of time isolating this. Now, I think you know why I mentioned this, and why, how you can actually deal with that in the future by either, well, doing this flight in a more longer line, a bit more planned from the movement, or by actually cutting around it, so using footage after or before this movement. You know this. So I'm going to go to the next thing, which is only a few seconds later. It's in the basically next scene, which starts at about here. So what we see here, and I'm going to let it play normally again for a few seconds, and look at the shadows here. You can, I'm stopping it again. You can see a few things here, or there's a few issues with this image. One is that in the shadows you have a bit of noise, and The other thing is you do not have much detail in here. You can see that in the leaves around the left side. There's a bit of detail missing. It's more of, well, mixed colors. And I think this has a few reasons. One of them is that you are shooting this with a camera with a small sensor that is not really well for low light. I don't know which camera this is. I guess that is your GH5, but it might also be your drone. I think this is the GH5, which is, I believe, an APS-C sensor. So you already would get a better image if you had a full-size sensor. But honestly, those cameras are way too expensive. Now, I think there is a low-light version of the GH5, the GH5S. Not sure. That would also improve it, but there's also an extremely expensive camera. So this might be something you cannot fix. But there's more to it. One, you can improve this a bit by overexposing. You mentioned that you shoot in D-Cine-like, or that on your GH5 you are shooting in something similar to D-Cine-like, and if you overexpose a bit, you're not going to lose that much details in the bright, especially in a scene as dark as this one. But you might gain a bit of detail in the dark. And you might get rid of the noise. I do not know if you had an ND filter on here, but you might consider shooting scenes like this without an ND filter if you had. And then there is the other thing that makes this a bit not so nice, and that's something I noticed later on again. You have a very low you have a very low bitrate on this video. I'm going to do a screenshot from the tool that I use to look at the bitrate. I'm going to put this right here, but your bitrate is somewhere around 4,000 something, and that for full HD 24 frames is way too little. Now, YouTube has a recommendation on that. I'm going to switch to this window. You can see the YouTube's recommendation here, which is 8,000 for the frame rate you are working with. You can go higher than the recommendation. Now, in this case, I'm pointing at the 8 because I downloaded the 1080 version. There was no 4K version. If you're 4K, you obviously want to have a lot more. I believe you use a Phantom 4 Pro, which should be able to record in a bitrate of 50 Mbps, and I'm sure your camera does that as well. The newer drones of DJI, the Mavic Air, for example, can go up to 100 Mbps in recording the bitrate. And you can actually, when exporting, try to keep a bit of that. That will keep more information in the picture and will especially help you with how the movement looks. This is not too important in this video, but it's something I noticed. In videos that are a lot faster, this will make even more of a difference. So, the next thing is coming right up. Then I'm going to go there frame by frame. Actually, it's already in the next frame. If I go one frame further, there we go. And go one back. What? Go one back. Go one forward. Go one back. Go one forward. You are hard inserting the titles there. I went back and then looked at the previous titles. It's the same thing. You are bringing them in quite hard. On the first ones, I didn't notice it. on this one, for some reason I noticed it, and this is a place where you can play a bit with transitions, or very, very subtle transitions, like coming in from some transparency, going out to just for a few frames, will make this feel less like pop and more like it's organically coming in there. Well, it's a question of style. You might want to go for this popping in. That might be what you want, so totally fair. I'm just thinking this is exactly one of those points where you could do a bit more. Now, those are already a few points. I have two more. The next point I have to go a bit further forward. That's on the waterfall scene. I was already asking about this in the chat. It's at second 45, frame 13, I noted. I think it's not the exact frame, but it's close enough. So, oh, by the way, this scene, the scene that you're seeing right now, I do love the colors in here. I mentioned it. It looked on my other screen extremely like older film cameras. Now that I'm looking on it on this screen, there is a bit of a bluish tone here that I'm not really certain if that's supposed to be that way. It might be one of the issues I'm talking about later. And in this movement here, you have the jitters again. Again, those are probably a lot worse in my video here, but they probably come from the frame rate. And that's basically what I want to talk about in the next scene as well, which is this waterfall scene. Beautiful, beautiful scene, but I'm already past it. If I go back, in this exact scene, you can really see the water falling. On your video, if I play it on my machine without all the recording running, even then, I can see the water falling in steps. Skipping pixels in there. So there is two ways how to deal with that. One is if you want to slow down video, record in a higher frame rate than the one that you're using. If you want to slow it down on say you are doing 24 frames and you want to slow something down, have at least your 50 frames there, your 49, whatever. If you are in 30 frames, have at least your 60. Have 90, have 120, and slow those down rather than using the 30 or maybe you even converted this to 24 before, because then you won't lose as much frames in between and it won't have the stepping effect. The other thing is, and it might also be that your shutter speed was too fast. That's when we use the ND filters, you know that part. The idea is with the ND filters to allow for a slower shutter speed to get this motion blur. So if you are recording something like a waterfall, you might even want to have slower than usual shutter speed, slower than those numbers that we usually go by. But that might not work with moving the camera, so you might not be able to do that. It's just one of the ways how you could deal with this movement, because the blur would actually mitigate this a bit. So the last thing, I have to go a few more seconds forward again. Damn, I wish I would get to places like this to record there. This is really, really beautiful. So it already starts here. I had this when I was sitting on my screen yesterday. This was basically the first scene where I was like, is this color of the stones there right? And I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt. Yes, that's how those stones could look. That's how this rock could look. But then I go forward, and we are in this scene. And now, if I look at the dark parts, at the shadows, doesn't matter if that's on the rock or if it's above in the trees. I mentioned it earlier. It's blue. This is too blue. This does not look like a real shadow. It looks like blue. This I think something went wrong with your color correction there. You might want to check that. I do not really have a solution for that, but if you want your color correction to work on one part of the image and not on another, you could work with masks there. Maybe that's something that you could use to not have the color correction that you're doing or the LUT that you're doing. I don't know what it is. Influence the color there so much, but have actually the influence on the parts that you want to change, while maybe keeping it a bit more in a more real color tone there. Well, that's all the things that I did write down in my notes. I hope this is helpful to you. And again, I really like the footage. I like the idea how you composited it. The video itself works really well for me. And those things are not that bad. They're just, I think you could improve there. And I think that was what you were asking for yesterday. So have a fantastic day and see you soon in chat.